Girl greets Ikuto and wonders if this world is a man's paradise. Another girl uses a nickname and calls him Ikun. Someone else addresses him as her older brother. A pair of girls call out to him using his last name Ikai's-kun. This world features reverse chastity where women are the ones who possess a strong libido. Women have become the carnivorous type and actively seek out men like Tanaka-kun and Takahashi-kun. Ikai's Ikuto has lived in this world for 15 years. While skewed gender ratios are a standard story trope, the ratio in this world is 1 man for every 20 women. Because men are so scarce, he has to stay on high alert whenever he is out in public. He grew up healthy and went on his first public outing with his mother before starting elementary school. Driven by curiosity, he waited for his mother to get distracted by shopping and slipped away to explore. He was immediately cornered by several women excited to see a little boy, and one even invited him to her house. He managed to escape the crowd, but his mother found him and scolded him severely for running off. Because he was judged as a reckless child, he attended elementary school, but had to do middle school through correspondence at home. Now that he is in high school, he prepares for his peak of popularity and expects to live a pampered harem life surrounded by girls. Ikuto realizes his expectations were wrong as he sees other boys terrified of walking home with girls. The aggressive nature of the women has turned the men into frightened herbivores who cower when girls approach them. While Ikuto finds it strange to turn down girls, a female voice announces that time is up. 2 girls acting as male guardians intervene to protect the boys and warn the others to step back. These guardians are specially selected students who act as intermediaries to protect men from aggressive women. The terrified boys take the chance to run home shouting about how scary women are. The guardians finish their work for the day as Ikuto watches this scene play out yet again. The term male guardian refers to both their duty to protect males and their own gender. Ikuto wonders why girls ignore the handsome guardians to chase after generic guys like Takahashi and Tanaka. Wanting to get close to girls himself, Ikuto takes the initiative and offers to hang out after school. His voice cracks from nerves, leaving the 2 girls he approached staring at each other in silence. The girls claim they cannot get close because he already has Tasaka-kun, leaving him confused. He mentions that Rui is in the faculty room, but the girls clarify that is not the issue. They explain that they support the shipping pair of him and Tasaka-kun and urge them to start dating. Ikuto tries to explain that Rui is just another man, but since same-gender romance is accepted here, he is left screaming internally about wanting to date a girl. Ikuto styles his black hair every day without fail. He sighs as he watches the girls leave the classroom while he sits alone. He maintains a muscular build with faintly visible abs. His academics are average, but he is decently good at sport. He feels his harem dreams becoming a pipe dream. He's the only student left in the classroom. Since it is prohibited for male students to go home alone, he decides to go pick up Rui because he is taking a long time. Ikuto walks down the hallway and calls out to Rui. Rui is currently surrounded by a group of female students. He apologizes to the girls and says he has male guardian duties. Rui is surprised that he came to call for him instead of waiting in the classroom. Rui possesses slender limbs, beautiful silver hair, long eyelashes, and large eyes. Standing at 174 centimeters tall, Rui is slightly taller than Ikuto. This high-spec handsome guy is Ikuto's male guardian. After 1 month of school, everyone knows him as a prince-like existence. Rui apologizes for being stopped by girls after delivering the class journal. Ikuto calls him a lucky jerk for having so many fans. Ikuto tells him not to worry. Rui admits that while he is happy for the support, it is troubling if he has to leave Ikuto alone every time. As a male guardian, Rui worries about the boy in his charge. He notes that unlike other boys, Ikuto seems used to girls rather than being afraid of them. Rui smiles and asks to continue protecting Ikuto right by his side. Ikuto is overwhelmed by the close-up and thinks to himself that Rui is way too handsome. He feels he can never beat Rui, who is perfect in everything. He realizes it makes sense that Rui is popular and feels like a plain guy next to him. Ikuto questions if any girl has a genuine interest in him as a man, and feels he is too unpopular even in a world of reverse chastity. Rui notices Ikuto pouting and asks if his company is not enough, while Ikuto sighs about not being popular like his friend. Ikuto realizes he cannot hate Rui for his popularity because his friend is simply too handsome. He tells Rui that having him by his side is fine, smiling at his friend. Rui reacts with surprise at Ikuto's sudden statement. Ikuto considers Rui a treasure and a true friend for life even in this changed world. Rui tells Ikuto that saying such things gets his hopes up without him realizing it, and then agrees to go. They discuss visiting a new cafe near the station to eat large hamburger steaks. Rui asks if he informed his parents and Kuno-kun about his late return, and Ikuto confirms he mentioned hanging out with Rui. Rui is glad he contacted them but thinks to himself that he will not forgive any pervert who gets close to Ikuto. After eating, Ikuto feels satisfied and considers that Rui's handsome looks make him more likely to be targeted by perverts. Rui notes that Ikuto is finally living a stable daily life while they walk together. Rui recalls when they first started school and Ikuto would wander off or talk to girls with zero sense of distance. He remembers how Ikuto tried hard to use pickup lines with unaccustomed phrasing and found the effort cute. Ikuto feels embarrassed and tells Rui to never mention it again, reflecting on it as a mistake of his youth. Ikuto recalls waking up in this world as a baby after being close to high school graduation in his previous life. He notes that he only had the knowledge of a newborn back then, and has spent 15 years adjusting to this reality. Rui asks why male guardians escort students, and Ikuto explains it is to prevent men from being harassed or taken by force. Rui confirms that a guardian must always stay close to prevent these dangerous situations when a man is alone outside of school. Rui mentions there is another benefit to being a pair and leads the way forward. They are interrupted by a shout from nearby as they walk through the city. A schoolgirl is seen bothering a man on the street, asking him to spend time with her since he is on his way home. The man appears uncomfortable as she persists with her invitation. Rui steps in to stop the girl and asks her to release the man, telling her that she has done quite enough. Ikuto stands close behind him as they intervene. Ikuto adds that she should stop the persistent pickup attempts because such behavior can be traumatic for men. The girl looks surprised by their sudden appearance. The girl shouts an apology and immediately runs away from the scene at full speed. Rui explains that being in a pair allows them to rescue other men more smoothly in these situations. Ikuto smiles and agrees that having two of them makes a difference. Ikuto reflects on how well Rui handles him. Even after 15 years in this world, he realizes he still holds on to the common sense and senses of his original world. Rui notes that Ikuto finally understands not to act on his own whims. Ikuto credits Rui's guidance for this progress, but still secretly believes an average guy like himself is not in any real danger when alone. He feels Rui is extremely kind for never abandoning him despite the extra trouble he caused compared to other boys when they first started school. Ikuto thanks Rui for his help. He warns Rui to be careful himself since his good looks make him a much more likely target for perverts in this world. The man they helped notices their school uniforms and stops them to express his gratitude. He thanks them for having the courage to help a fellow man. The man suddenly shouts an excuse and runs off quickly while Ikuto and Rui watch him go. Ikuto wonders if the man had an urgent errand he suddenly remembered. Rui remains quiet with a serious expression and tells Ikuto it is time for them to head out. The meal was a success, and Ikuto enjoyed every bit of the delicious hamburger steak. Ikuto waves goodbye at his front door and thanks Rui for hanging out, telling his friend to get home safe. Rui waves back and starts the walk home, admitting it is hard to part ways but wanting to get home and change into something comfortable. Back in her room, Rui reflects on how Ikuto still misunderstands that the term male guardian means a guardian who is male by gender. She begins loosening her tie and wonders if it ever occurred to Ikuto that it is strange for a boy to be guarding another boy. Rui decides that his silly side is simply part of his charm as she prepares to undress in front of her mirror. She continues taking off her school uniform, ready to shed the persona she maintains at school. She unbuttons her shirt and starts to wonder about the future of their relationship. The open shirt reveals the heavy binding around her chest as she thinks about what Ikuto would do if he knew the truth. Rui looks at her reflection and acknowledges that she is actually a girl. She looks down at her bound form and wonders if Ikuto would be happy to find out her secret. She hopes that one day Ikuto and only him will be able to accept her true form. In this world where the gender ratio is 1 man to every 20 women, women have become the carnivores and men have become the prey. Men prefer women who are slender and flat-chested because they feel less threatened by that physique, which is why she keeps herself bound. This is the secret behind the male guardians who cross-dress as men to protect and stay close to the men they love. Rui stares at her reflection, feeling like the exact opposite of the ideal woman as she thinks about her hidden past. Her phone rings suddenly and she is stunned to see a notification from Ikuto. At the supermarket, Ikuto is pleased to have found exactly what he wanted. He grabs several bags of soy sauce and nari salt potato chips while the women in the aisle whisper about seeing a man alone. He picks up a large bottle of soda and heads toward the checkout, unaware of the shocked crowd watching a boy shop by himself. As he walks along the sidewalk, a voice suddenly calls out his name. Rui is waiting for him and pokes his forehead when he jokingly asks if she is stalking him. She claims she was just shopping nearby and decided to wait so she could escort him back safely. Ikuto remembers his promise to stay in contact. Rui shows him her phone and admits she is happy he kept his word about keeping her updated. Ikuto holds his grocery bag and smiles, proud that he managed to handle the shopping trip all by himself without any issues. Rui tells him not to let his guard down just because he was safe today. Ikuto stops her mid-sentence to ask a blunt question about her chest. Ikuto points at her and asks if those are boobs. Rui freezes in place, realizing she has made a massive mistake. Rui panics internally, realizing that in her rush to check on Ikuto she completely forgot to wrap her chest. Ikuto stares at her with wide eyes. She blushes intensely and sweats frantically, wondering how to handle the situation. She trembles in silence, fearing that Akuto will reject her now that he has seen her true form. Akuto continues to stare at her, beginning to speak as he processes the discovery. Akuto points his finger at Rui and shouts, asking if he went out of his way to cross-dress as a girl just to come visit. Rui sighs and calls Akuto beyond dense, while he assumes this was a convoluted plan to teach him how dangerous women can be. Rui bluntly calls him an idiot, which leaves Akuto flustered and defensive. Akuto reflects on his jealous feelings toward the other men in this world who are constantly pampered by women. Rui tells him it was nothing when he asks if she said something, deciding to drop the subject for now. Akuto walks ahead and casually mentions that Rui looks good with a large chest, leaving her completely stunned. He tells Rui she looks cute, but panics internally, reminding himself that he should not be hitting on someone he believes is a man. Rui leans into his face and asks for his honest opinion, and Akuto nervously repeats that he thinks she is cute. Rui blushes deeply and accepts the compliment, realizing that only Akuto would ever see her true form. She decides it is time to head home, and Akuto follows her while still feeling awkward about their exchange. Rui asks if he saw the group chat message from his little brother, causing Akuto to break into a cold sweat. Akuto's cousin Ikai's Kuno waits on the sofa with crossed arms while Akuto sits on the floor in a formal, apologetic posture. Akuto explains that they live together for various reasons and asks if Kuno is mad about him going shopping alone. Kuno claims he is not angry while pouting, but Akuto is certain that he is actually fuming. Akuto reports that he managed to shop without being hit on once, but he secretly feels sad about his lack of popularity. Kuno lectures Akuto about the constant danger women pose outside and asks why he insisted on going shopping alone. Kuno reveals that he would hold a grudge against every woman in existence if Akuto were ever attacked. Akuto realizes that Kuno's extreme overprotectiveness is fueled by his role as a middle school male guardian. Kuno admits he accidentally spoke his deepest feelings out loud, which leaves Akuto gasping in shock. Kuno explains that his behavior stems from genuine worry and his own peace of mind, though he admits he does not want his feelings to become a burden on Akuto. Akuto smiles as Kuno tells him that his kindness and lack of fear toward women are his best traits, even if they are also dangerous flaws. Kuno offers to endure and suppress his own feelings if they make it too difficult for Akuto to live his life freely. Akuto thanks Kuno for the concern, but when Kuno asks him to improve his behavior in return, Akuto gives a non-committal answer. Akuto suggests that the best way forward is for them to keep talking like this to find a compromise they both find acceptable. He believes that finding a middle ground through communication is the best way for both of them to feel better. Akuto understands that Kuno's overprotective stance is considered the correct way to act in this world, but he finds it suffocating and boring to just blindly obey. Kuno asks if Akuto is truly fine with him staying exactly as he is, and Akuto encourages him to bring on the overprotectiveness. Akuto suggests they go out together the next day and promises to buy Kuno some high-end ice cream. Satisfied with the peace offering, Kuno officially adjourns his lecture while Akuto smiles. Akuto's mother brings plates of hamburger steak to the table and notes that Akuto's behavior confuses her sense of male values, leading Akuto to ask if she finds him difficult. Akuto's mother calls him a wonderful son and says he is almost too good for her, which Akuto appreciates as a change from the over-worried mothers typical of this world. Mother tells Kuno that the same rules apply to him. Akuto appreciates that she doesn't coddle him and makes him handle his own business, as it reminds him of his previous life. Mother explains that some people find it difficult to say what they truly want. Kuno silently expresses his gratitude to her for the support. She warns Akuto to pay attention to others' feelings, since a single word can destroy a relationship, but he casually dismisses the advice. Akuto continues eating and claims everything will be fine because there are no idiots around him, leaving Kuno in silence. Someone remains silent with their mouth pulled into a tight line. In the middle of a lesson, Rui stares off into space while the teacher writes on the chalkboard. Rui looks over at Akuto and sighs, noting that he is sleeping at his desk and remains completely defenseless. She realizes that while all other boys are constantly on guard, Akuto is the only one who can sleep soundly in a classroom. Despite having zero previous interest in men, she thinks that getting to see his sleeping face might not be so bad. Memory surfaces of a time when she grew to hate herself. In a flashback, young boys whisper about how freaky and huge she is, claiming she will attack anyone who gets close to her. The young Rui stands alone and listens as the other children gossip about the giant girl named Tasaka. She developed a complex regarding boys because they judged her selfishly based solely on her appearance. The isolation became complete as even the other girls in her class decided to stay away from her. Desperate to avoid the hatred of the rare boys in the world, she began painfully binding her chest and decided she could not go on living as she was. When she entered middle school, Rui decided to reinvent herself as a cool girl to become popular with others. She cut her hair and changed everything from her voice to her demeanor to make her school life more bearable. However, the change made her hate herself more because she felt that people only acknowledged her when she was wearing a mask. She felt her life was a lie and began to question the entire point of her existence. An advisor suggested she aim for a male guardian slot at a high school, noting she would be a perfect fit for the role. She discovered that the position offered incredible benefits, including a full scholarship and covered living expenses. She decided to become a guardian for her own sake rather than to protect boys, and was eventually assigned to look after Ikai's Ikuto. Ikuto sat in the classroom and looked at her blankly when they first met. A teacher checked in on them, interrupting Rui just as she was introduced to her new charge. Rui noticed that Ikuto was staring at her intensely while she stood in the classroom. She felt awkward and asked if there was something on her face because he wouldn't look away. Ikuto apologized and admitted he was just thinking about how insanely handsome she was, noting that her existence explained why a guy like him wasn't popular. He told her he bet she had tons of friends and fans, which caught her completely by surprise. She admitted that she was far from popular and didn't really have many friends. The two of them sat in silence as they processed her unexpected confession. Ikuto suddenly stood up and apologized profusely, saying the situation was entirely his fault, and that he didn't know her circumstances. Ikuto bows and slams his hands onto the desk, insisting he just rushed things because he wanted them to get along. Rui tells him he really does not need to apologize that much. Ikuto mentions they are the same age, and says he would be happy if she just called him Ikuto without any honorifics. Rui is surprised by the request to use his given name. Rui feels her heart skip a beat at his suggestion. Rui agrees to the change, and Ikuto happily asks if they can also drop the formal speech between them. Ikuto gives her a bright smile and says it is nice to meet her properly. Rui realizes this is the first time a boy has ever smiled at her like that. Rui asks if he isn't afraid of her despite her tall height and large build. She assumes he must secretly think she's just a giant woman like all the other boys from her past, but Ikuto asks what is wrong with her appearance. Ikuto tells her that a person's appearance isn't the only thing that defines who they are. He explains that personality and chemistry are what matter most, and expresses a sincere desire to get along with her. Rui is left wondering why he would say such a thing. She reflects on the fact that no man has ever spoken to her that way in her entire life. Rui stares at Ikuto's smiling face and begins to wonder if it is possible that not every boy in the world is exactly the same. Overwhelmed with emotion, Rui begins to tear up at his kind word. Ikuto extends his hand toward her, and says that from now on they will be a team. He tells Rui that he will be relying on her as his partner, and offers a handshake while cherry blossoms drift through the classroom. Ikuto reaches out his hand to finalize their partnership with a handshake. Rui takes his hand and tells him that she's counting on him too, addressing him simply as Ikuto. In the present, Rui watches Ikuto sleep at his desk, and thinks about how he has kept her on her toes since that day. She remembers how he would constantly chat with girls as soon as school started, desperate to be popular, but only causing misunderstanding. Rui believes the aggressive girls in their school would have devoured him if she hadn't been there to guard him. She recalls Ikuto helping a girl with a heavy stack of books, which left the student stunned and blushing. Another time, Ikuto offered a piggyback ride to a girl who mentioned she was feeling a bit sick. When he offered to Princess carry her instead, the girl panicked and claimed his actions would make her fever spike. Ikuto remains convinced that he is unpopular because a handsome guy like Rui is always standing next. He is completely oblivious to the fact that his straightforward kindness makes even the most carnivorous girls feel flustered. Rui continues to watch him sleep and concludes that life is certainly never boring with him around. She knows she is actually a girl and the exact kind of person he is looking for, unlike anyone else he knows. She looks at him with a soft gaze and thinks that she would do anything as long as it is for him. Later, as they walk together, Ikuto mentions that something has just come to mind. He asks if their outdoor study trip is scheduled to happen soon. Ikuto notices a raindrop on his forehead and realizes it is starting to rain. A heavy downpour suddenly drenches them both as they stand on the sidewalk. Ikuto shouts that they need to find shelter from the flash storm immediately. Rui points out that trying to find shelter where there are other women is far too dangerous for him. Ikuto says his house is just a little further and tells Rui to pick up the pace so they can get there quickly. Rui is startled by the sudden suggestion of going to his home. They make it through the front door and catch their breath, completely soaked by the rain. Ikuto notes that his mother and Kuno are not home yet while Rui stands nervously in the entryway. Ikuto starts stripping off his wet shirt and tells Rui she can put her clothes in the dryer too. Rui stares at him in complete shock. Rui panics and shouts, asking him why he is taking his clothes off right there. Ikuto explains that he has to dry his uniform and does not want to catch a cold by staying in wet clothes. He smiles and flexes, telling Rui that he has been working out for 2 years and is close to having a six-pack. Ikuto tells Rui to make herself at home since no one else is around, while Rui blushes intensely and turns away. Rui mutters quietly to herself that the fact he is home alone is exactly the problem. Ikuto asks if she said something, but a flustered Rui frantically denies it. Rui takes a shower and lets out a long sigh of relief as the warm water hits her. She wonders if it is truly acceptable for a guardian to shower before their charge, but admits the warmth feels amazing after being out in the cold rain. Ikuto calls out from the other side of the door announcing that he is coming into the changing area. He asks how the water temperature is while setting down a basket, mentioning that he is leaving a fresh change of clothes for her. Rui thanks him through the shower door and apologizes for going first, but Ikuto dismisses the concern with a smile. He explains that getting the clothes ready while she washes is just more efficient. A massive crack of thunder suddenly roars outside. Rui lets out a loud scream of terror at the noise. Ikuto is startled by her reaction and comments on how the storm is really picking up intensity. Rui calls out for him to wait as he begins to walk away to make hot drinks. He mentions his hope that the power stays on. Rui quickly shuts off the water. Ikuto stops in the doorway and asks what the matter is. Rui looks downward and asks if he could please stay close by until she finishes changing. She admits she has a fear of thunder and asks if he thinks that is weird, but Ikuto insists it is not strange at all. He tells her that everyone has weaknesses, sharing that he is scared of haunted houses and promises to stay right on the other side of the door so she won't be anxious. Rui slides open the glass door and steps into the changing room, thinking to herself about how kind Ikuto truly is. As she wraps herself in a towel, Ikuto leans against the wall outside and says she is a precious friend who treats him better than anyone else. Rui blushes deeply at his words and takes the opportunity to ask him what kind of girl he usually likes. Ikuto considers his preferences and explains he likes girls who are cute, kind, and fun to be with. From the changing room, Rui asks how he feels about tall girls with large breasts who are fun to be around. He admits that he obviously loves that type. He says that sounds like the ultimate combination and he would love to meet a girl like that. Rui's heart pounds as she hears his response. Rui feels she can finally face the strange feelings she has only for Ikuto. She has finally made up her mind to settle the matter. She never thought she would fall in love with a boy, but she realizes Ikuto is special. She wants to be more than just his guardian from now on. She desires to be by his side as a woman and as an equal. She admits that she has fallen in love with him. Rui wants him to be the one to acknowledge her more than anyone else because she loves him. She decides to reveal her true form to him right now. Ikuto asks how the changing is going because Rui has been quiet for too long. Rui says that in that case she fits his description perfectly. Ikuto is confused by her sudden statement. Rui suddenly emerges and presses her naked body against him. Ikuto is completely stunned as she grabs onto him. She softly says his name while holding him close. With a deeply blushed face, she tells him to look at the real her. Ikuto is left in total shock and blushes intensely at the sight. Ikuto realizes how soft her body feels and notes that she definitely does not feel like a man. He asks if the person who has been with him this entire time is actually a girl. Ikuto demands to know the truth while Rui lets out a soft laugh. Rui blushes deeply and confirms that he is right and that she is indeed a girl. Ikuto stares at her in complete disbelief as the reality of her words sinks in. The two of them remain in silence while the heavy rain continues to fall outside. Rui eventually pulls away and moves to stand up. She tells Ikuto to go into the hallway so he can take his turn to warm up, promising to explain everything properly once he is finished. Ikuto leaves the room and sinks to the floor in the hallway. He sits with his hand over his face, unable to process the fact that Rui has been a girl all along. Ikuto returns to the room later after warming up and Rui welcomes him back. Rui sits on the sofa in casual clothes and the sight of her chest makes Ikuto jump back in shock. Rui admits she didn't think he would be so oblivious and apologizes while Ikuto frantically wonders how she managed to hide such a large chest until now. Rui tells Ikuto that she doesn't want him to apologize and asks him to come sit by her. She confesses that she knew he misunderstood her gender from the start, but intentionally chose not to say anything. Rui asks if they can consider things settled between them. Ikuto nervously agrees, saying it is fine with him if she's okay with it. An awkward silence falls as they sit together on the sofa. Ikuto is too embarrassed to look her in the eye, so Rui asks if she can talk about her past for a bit. Rui explains how her height and large chest caused her serious problems starting in elementary school. She describes being hated by boys and shunned by other girls because of her appearance. Ikuto is taken aback by her confession. Ikuto encourages her to continue and tell him everything. Rui agrees to go on. She reveals that she changed her voice to sound more masculine and went to great lengths to hide her chest. She concludes that this was the life she led until now. Rui tells Ikuto it is no wonder he didn't notice because she had been faking her identity the entire time. Ikuto sits with his head in his hands. Ikuto thinks about the hardship she must have faced from boys judging her body and girls avoiding her by association. He realizes there is likely much more pain behind her story than she is letting on. He imagines the reality of her being isolated and understands that it must have been an incredibly painful experience for her. Ikuto feels that a simple platitude like telling her to cheer up would be inappropriate given the weight of her past. Rui finishes her story and thanks him for listening, saying she feels much better and won't dwell on it anymore. She then asks Ikuto to look at her properly and see how she looks in the present. Ikuto finds her request difficult to fulfill despite its simplicity. He feels overwhelmed sitting so close to her, and worries that he won't be able to maintain his usual composure. Rui giggles at his reaction. Ikuto finally agrees to look at her but begs for mercy, clearly flustered. Rui looks at him with a gentle and sincere expression. Rui asks Ikuto for his honest opinion on how she looks right now in her casual clothes. Ikuto thinks about how much she must have struggled to find the right time to reveal her secret and how tough it was to bring up her past. He realizes that her decision to gather her courage and show her true self is a sign of how much she deeply trusts him. Ikuto decides he has to be just as honest in return and calls out her name. He thanks her for being vulnerable and opening up to him about her past and the fact that she is a girl. Ikuto leans in and bluntly tells her that he personally thinks she's super cute just the way she is. He tells Rui that he is counting on her to continue being his partner from now on. Rui remembers the feeling of their first handshake back in the classroom when they were assigned to each other. Rui gives him a bright, genuine smile and says she is glad, while Ikuto notes how great her smile is. She recalls the exact moment they first shook hands and how his words impacted her. Ikuto told her she had a great smile the very first time they met, which left her stunned. That interaction was the first time she had ever been able to genuinely smile in front of a boy. Rui points out that he said the exact same thing to her on their very first day together. Ikuto doubles down and says there is no doubt it is a great smile, insisting that a natural expression is what suits her best. He tells her that her natural smile suits her much better than the mask she usually wears. Rui smiles warmly at Ikuto. Rui tells Ikuto she is counting on him too, and they shake hands to reaffirm their bond. Time passes as the weather changes outside the house. It has been 1 week since Ikuto found out that Rui is actually a girl. Their relationship stays largely the same as they continue their school life. Rui wears her school uniform while using sarashi cloth to hide her chest. Ikuto stares at Rui in class, caught up in his thoughts about her secret and wondering where it all goes. The teacher asks Ikuto to read the next paragraph, catching him completely off guard since he was not paying attention. Rui helps him find the right place in the book, but tells him to stop looking at her chest and pay attention to the lesson instead. Ikuto stands up to read, telling Rui she is a lifesaver for helping him out. Rui reminds him that it is only natural for her to help him since she is his guardian. She makes it clear that she cannot overlook the fact that he was staring at her chest for the entire class period. Ikuto jokingly thanks her for the view and tries to laugh off the awkward situation. Rui laughs softly while Ikuto realizes his eyes might just naturally drift toward her from now on. Walking alone later, Ikuto admits he is a pushover, but concludes that his reaction is just natural for any guy. Ikuto encounters 2 other students, Kamiju and Akarazaki, in the school hallway. The 2 girls acting as male guardians tell the surrounding crowd to step back and declare that they will show no mercy. Akarazaki calls out to Ikuto, who reflects on how these guardians for the other few boys in school seem like normal high school girls in this moment. Akarazaki, whose name is Mio, remains enthusiastic while the other girl, Ren, warns her that she might startle Ikuto by calling out so suddenly. Ren insists that there is a proper way to handle things even if Ikuto is okay with the casual greeting. Mio pats Ren on the head and tells her she is cute for being so serious, while Ren suspects Mio is just trying to distract her. Mio continues the head pats and doubles down on her claim that Ren is super cute. Ren tries to resist being swayed by the head pats as Mio continues to praise her for being honest and cute. Ikuto watches their wholesome interaction from a distance and considers leaving them to it. Ikuto addresses the 2 by their names, Akarazaki and Kamiju, and asks if they were calling for him. The 2 are shocked that he remembered their names, but Ikuto explains that it is natural to remember since they are classmates and fellow guardians. They are incredibly happy to hear this, though Ren wonders if their reaction is becoming a bit too dramatic. They explain that people usually just call them hey or you, and that it is rare for anyone to actually use their name. Ikuto realizes this is the first time he has ever spoken to them, and decides he will use their names as often as they like since it makes them happy. Ren and Mio apologize for the sudden approach and inform Ikuto that he cannot enter the faculty room right now because an unscheduled staff meeting is in progress. Mio tells Ikuto that he is a very kind person. Ren smiles and agrees, noting that he is even kind to people like them. Ikuto acts flustered and asks if they really think he is that kind. Mio asks if it is true that he actually believed Rui was a boy until just recently. Ikuto admits it is true, though the question stings, and he notes that they call her Ru-chan. Mio assures him that his mistake is understandable because Rui is so tall and cool. Ikuto feels guilty for being so dense, while Ren tells Mio that she is dealing emotional damage to him. Ren says she found the whole situation heartwarming, but Mio admits she wondered how someone could be so oblivious. Ikuto tells them he wishes they had just said something instead of only watching him. Mio explains that they could not say anything because he and Rui seemed so close, so they decided to just watch over the relationship. Ikuto reflects on people saying they were a perfect match, and realized that others were being considerate of them all along. He learns the truth that all of the male guardians at the school are actually girls. Ikuto realizes that the salaryman he saved earlier likely ran away because he saw Rui's uniform and knew she was a woman. Ikuto takes full responsibility for not noticing the truth, while the girls offer their sincerest apologies for not telling him. Ikuto laughs it off and says he mistook her for a guy because she is so handsome, but his mention of a trope from his old world leaves the girls confused. Mio asks Ikuto how things are going now that he finally knows Rui is a girl. Ikuto says nothing has really changed, and that although he was surprised at first, Rui is still the same person on the inside. He adds that the fact that she is an important friend to him has not changed either. Ren and Mio stay silent for a moment as they process his sincere words. Mio says that Rui is a lucky girl to have someone say that, while Ren admits she is quite envious of their relationship. Ikuto covers his face and confesses that his eyes unintentionally drift to Rui's chest now, which leaves the two girls shouting in shock. Mio tells him she appreciates the honesty and gives him a head pat as a reward for being truthful about himself and Rui. She continues to pat his head, calling it a surprise attack for the win. Ikuto asks if he's being overshadowed by Rui's handsomeness, since unlike other boys he never gets approached by girls. Ikuto leans in very close, making the girls flustered, since no boy has ever been this close to them before. The girls whisper to each other about whether they should explain that there are plenty of reasons for his situation. Mio says the first reason is that he is incredibly kind and has a wonderful friendly nature, but notes that not every boy would respond as kindly as he does. She explains that most girls are constantly gauging how much a boy wants to talk and what the appropriate distance is, which Ikuto thinks sounds like a lot of work. Mio tells him that because he is always kind, he tends to be put on the back burner while girls try to interact with other boys. Mio insists that he should stay exactly as he is for Rui's sake, and Ikuto realizes how much thought the girls put into their interactions. Ren questions the idea of acting for Rui's sake. Mio explains that while Rui is a fellow guardian and friend to them, her situation with Ikuto is unique. Mio tells Ikuto that he stays by Rui's side more than anyone else. She believes their level of trust is far beyond what anyone else has with her, especially since it will take a long time for Rui to open up to others about her worries. Ren observes that Rui genuinely enjoys herself around Ikuto without faking her personality. She sees it as a relationship where they can laugh together and let their worries fade away. Ren believes that being with Ikuto provides Rui with a special time where she can show her true self. The two girls walk away, asking Ikuto to continue looking after Rui from now on. Ikuto smiles and agrees to take on the responsibility. As he continues down the hall, Ikuto wonders about the other reasons Mio had for why he is not popular with girls. Rui suddenly grabs Ikuto's arm and says she was worried sick while he was busy having fun. She asks to join in on whatever was so entertaining. Rui presses close to Ikuto and asks what he and the other two were talking about. Ikuto gets nervous and jokingly claims he was just getting hit on by the other girls. Mio and Ren panic at Ikuto's dangerous joke as Rui's expression turns menacing. Ikuto quickly clarifies that they were just talking about him and his lack of popularity. Ikuto notes that the three guardians together have a dignified aura and thinks they're a group of beauties. Rui catches Ikuto looking at her and asks him what is wrong. Ikuto waves her off and insists that nothing is wrong at all. Ikuto looks back and realizes that his relationship with Rui is not going to change. Ikuto has a feeling that he will be conscious of Rui as a girl a lot more often from now on. The day continues at a large shopping mall. Ikuto remarks on how crowded it is during the holidays while Kuno tugs on his sleeve and calls out to him. Kuno tells Ikuto to stay close so they do not get separated in the large crowd. Ikuto assures her that they will be fine. He notes that they are the center of attention for all the women nearby, though Kuno says she would rather not stand out at all. Ikuto carries a tray of popcorn and drinks as they head toward the cinema for their movie date. The surrounding women gush over the two beautiful boys, wondering if they're brothers and finding their relationship precious. Ikuto thinks that most of the women's gazes are probably focused entirely on Kuno because she looks so perfect. He takes a look at Kuno's outfit, which consists of a matching vest and pants. Ikuto reflects on how a standard outfit is elevated simply because Kuno is the one wearing it. The reason for their movie trip starts with events from earlier that morning. Morning arrives in the world of reverse chastity. The time is already 15 minutes past 11 in the morning. Ikuto walks down the stairs and greets Kuno, who notes that he still looks half asleep. Ikuto notices Kuno behaving suspiciously and wonders what is happening. Ikuto asks Kuno what he is hiding behind his back. Kuno stammers and tries to avoid the question while staying in place. Ikuto gets closer, suspecting Kuno is up to something. Ikuto catches Kuno by surprise and tickles him, shouting that he finally got him. Kuno tries to regain his composure while Ikuto notices he is still desperately trying to keep something hidden behind his back. Ikuto continues the tickle attack, realizing Kuno has no way to defend himself from this position. Ikuto finally discovers the movie tickets that Kuno was trying to keep secret. Ikuto looks over the tickets while Kuno clears his throat to get his attention. Kuno decides to be honest and explains that his mother gave him the tickets before leaving, saying she received them from an acquaintance. Ikuto happily suggests they go to the movie together, but Kuno refuses, immediately prompting Ikuto to say he will just go alone. Kuno's expression turns dark at the suggestion, so Ikuto quickly claims he was only joking. Ikuto thinks about how overprotective Kuno is because he is extra paranoid about women due to his job as a male guardian. Kuno says movie theaters are extremely crowded with many women, so he absolutely refuses to go. Ikuto asks if Kuno thinks there is a chance he might get attacked in the crowd, and Kuno gives an immediate confirmation. Kuno insists it will be fine this time and asks if he really looks like the type of person to get attacked, noting that he has never been popular with girls. Kuno smiles and tells Ikuto that no one will attack him as long as they are together because she will be there to protect him. Ikuto feels uneasy about going to a place crowded with women, but Kuno pleads with her to just hang out and watch a movie together as siblings. Ikuto eventually gives in and agrees to go if he insists, that much making Kuno cheer in celebration. While Kuno adjusts his hair in the mirror, Ikuto comments on how he pays a surprising amount of attention to his appearance. Kuno explains that although personality is more important, appearance is still the first thing people use to judge others. Kuno admits he started grooming himself to be popular, but now he enjoys the process because taking care of his appearance makes him feel more positive. Ikuto looks at Kuno and thinks to herself that no amount of effort could ever compete with his natural good looks. At the theater, Ikuto looks over the available options and asks Kuno if she can be the one to pick the movie. Kuno agrees and says he would actually appreciate her picking, since whatever she chooses will likely be a safe bet. Ikuto points out a high school rom-com and Kuno agrees to go with her choice. Ikuto looks at the promotional displays for snacks and asks Kuno if they are really going to watch a movie. Ikuto mentions how it gets pitch black inside the theater, but Kuno replies that it is only dark so that everyone can focus on the screen. Ikuto tells Kuno that he has zero sense of danger, and mentions that their mother always called him defenseless and foolish, wondering if he is equating a theater to a haunted house. Ikuto bluntly asks Kuno if he left his sense of danger behind when he was born, leaving him stunned. Ikuto thinks about how his reaction makes sense given she was reincarnated into a world with reversed chastity standards. She apologizes for being overprotective but warns him about the risk of a woman groping him in the dark and causing him trauma. Ikuto continues to apologize to him for letting her anxiety run wild. Kuno realizes that while men are rare, he cannot be sure that women will maintain their common sense in the darkness of the theater. He acknowledges that many women in this world are essentially predators due to the extreme 1:20 gender ratio. Ikuto realizes her overprotectiveness might make Kuno spend the whole movie worrying instead of enjoying the film. She decides on a way to put his mind at ease and asks him for his thoughts on a suggestion. The two of them reach out and take each other's hand. Kuno tries not to get distracted by how small her hand is and suggests they hold hands while the movie is playing. He explains that holding hands will help them both relax and tells her to squeeze his hand if anyone tries anything funny. Ikuto starts to ask a question about the situation but hesitates and stops herself. Kuno quickly apologizes and tells her she does not have to force herself to hold hands if she does not want to. Ikuto clarifies for him that she never once said she disliked holding his hand. Kuno asks if she wants to continue holding hands and she agrees while noting a specific condition. Ikuto asks him not to say things like that casually to any other girls and to save those words only for her. Kuno agrees to her request. The movie begins playing on the large screen inside the dark theater. They sit together in their seats holding hands as the film starts, causing Ikuto's heart to race. Ikuto realizes she is far too distracted to focus on the movie at all. She whispers to herself that he is truly an oblivious heartbreaker. She reflects on how her past self once swore to never have anything to do with men again. Ikuto watches him instead of the screen while Kuno laughs and enjoys the film. A flashback shows Ikuto as a young student walking to school with her classmates. She recalls her deep-seated despise for men during her younger years. She explains that she has an older twin brother. She notes that in this world men are treated like rare treasure. Her mother tells young Kuno that he can just stay home if he does not feel like going to school today. Her mother promises him that he never has to do anything that upsets him. Ikuto stands at the door and watches her mother babying her brother. Her mother tells Ikuto that she is fine going to school on her own. Her mother tells young Kuno to just play and do whatever he wants while Ikuto tries to get her attention. Her mother ushers the boy into a room full of toys and games before the door slams shut, leaving Ikuto alone in the hallway. Ikuto stands outside the closed door, feeling that her brother being coddled is no reason for her parents to treat her so coldly. At a school sports festival, Ikuto calls out for her parents to look at her. She runs across the field holding a first-place flag and showing off the medal she won. Ikuto looks around at the other children who are surrounded by their supportive parents. She realizes her parents never came to the festival because her brother had decided to skip it. She feels that her parents have zero interest in her because she is a girl and only shower her brother with love. A memory shows her mother and father happily playing video games with her brother. Ikuto stands alone with her flag in the middle of the crowded festival grounds. She wonders if growing up in that environment finally broke her mind. She remembers desperately trying to read the moods of adults just to get them to acknowledge her existence. Young Ikuto nervously tries to speak to her father using a masculine pronoun to refer to herself. Her father looks over his shoulder at her with a look of annoyance. She pleads with him to listen to what she has to say as well. Ikuto recalls changing her first-person pronoun to a masculine one, and strictly using formalities when speaking to her family. She reflects on how being trapped in that toxic household twisted her personality in the worst way. Her change in speech initially shocked her parents, but it did not change the fact that she was still physically a girl. By the 6th grade, referring to herself with masculine pronouns felt normal, and her parents' cold treatment of her remained the same. She spends time alone on a swing set at a park while other families and children play nearby. As she sits there, a voice nearby asks her if she is not having any fun on the swings. She looks up to see Kuno standing in front of her. Kuno asks if he can take the swing next to her, which startles her because she is not used to boys approaching her. Kuno smiles at her from the neighboring swing on the day they first met. Back in the theater, a loud shout from the movie screen startles Ikuto out of her memories. The movie character on screen yells for someone to take their hands off his girl. Ikuto is further startled as the movie dialogue triggers a memory of being yelled at in the past. She remembers her brother angrily telling her not to casually wander into his sight while their mother looked on happily. In the present, Ikuto suddenly squeezes Kuno's hand tightly, causing him to turn his attention away from the film. Kuno leans in toward her and asks if there is something wrong. Ikuto tells Kuno that she is fine, and that a sound from the movie just caught her off guard. Kuno accepts her explanation while Ikuto tells herself that he is nothing like her actual brother. She reflects on how Kuno is the complete opposite of her biological flesh and blood brother. Ikuto focuses on the reality of Kuno being right there with her in the present moment. Despite his presence, she finds that she cannot stop shaking simply from the memory of her brother. She concludes that she is not yet ready to reveal her past or her true self to him. Ikuto is surprised when she feels Kuno moving his hand against hers, noting that he is different from Rui-san. Kuno begins to lightly move his fingers against her palm, and Ikuto thinks to herself that the sensation tickled. She lets out a soft laugh as she relaxes. As the experience continues, Ikuto looks over at Kuno and reflects on how things turned out. Kuno points out that they managed to get through the film without being attacked by any girls after all. Ikuto warns him that letting his guard down is the biggest danger and tells him she will just have to hold his hand even tighter. Her heart begins to pound loudly as she feels a sudden rush of emotion. Kuno responds to her words by gripping her hand with sudden and intense strength. Ikuto is left wide-eyed and blushing from the unexpected force of his firm grip. Kuno's firm grip on her hand calms Ikuto down and makes her feel happy. As they sit in the theater, Ikuto's thoughts drift toward her brother. She looks at him and decides he is far more wonderful than any idealized man in the movies. She determines that she will not let these softly murmured words reach him just yet. Later at a restaurant, the two, a meal consisting of burgers and drinks. While eating, Kuno comments that the movie was a surprisingly good watch and asks for her opinion. Ikuto admits that she does not really remember much of the film, leaving Kuno completely stunned. Kuno asks if the movie was boring since he had assumed she enjoyed it after seeing her move her hand and chuckle. He wonders if he never actually needed to worry about her in the first place. Ikuto taps his hand, prompting him to ask what the matter is. She begins to playfully tickle and probe his palm with her fingers. Ikuto smiles across the table and tells him that going to the movies with him is not bad at all. She lets out a soft laugh while looking at him with a blush. Kuno's heart races as he sits across from her, and he suggests they should definitely come again, just the two of them. He takes her hand and reflects on how her genuine enjoyment makes him feel happy too. The scene shifts to the school building as another day begins with students arriving. A girl with long flowing hair enters the quiet classroom and walks toward the window. She climbs up and sits directly on top of one of the student desks. She sits perched on the desk and gazes out at the campus grounds below. Her eyes fixate on a boy walking outside, and she follows his every move. Looking out the window, she softly murmurs a nickname for the boy she is watching. She blushes and smiles to herself as she continues to think about him.